As millets have traditionally been part of diets in different cultures across the globe, it is apt for celebrating this theme by discussing on millets. The webinar includes keynote address, presentations, and discussions which shall explore the challenges and opportunities, nutrition and health benefits, and research and development required to mainstream millets into food systems. Also, with the millet movement now growing global, with the United Nations having declared 2023 as the International Year of Millets, which is made possible through the efforts of Government of India, we are extremely happy to have with us our guest of honor, Dr. Nilam Patel, who is Senior Advisor, Niti Aayog, Government of India. Thank you so much, Madam, for gracing this event and by sparing your valuable time out of your busy schedule to be with us. So on behalf of ICRISAT, I'm very happy to welcome you, Madam. And for the benefit of our listeners and panelists, I would like to briefly introduce you, Madam. Dr. Nilam Patel is currently working as Senior Advisor, Agriculture and Allied Sectors, Niti Aayog. Prior to this, Madam was in charge of Center for Protected Cultivation Technology and Principal Scientist, Water Technology Center, Indian Agriculture Research Institute, New Delhi. She is recipient of Dr. Ramnath Singh Award of IRI New Delhi in 2002 and a number of awards. She is also Dr. Nilam Patel is accomplished researcher and has also conducted a large number of training programs for state government officials and farmers for popularizing precision farming technologies, including those developed by her. For the benefit of audience, I would like to highlight that Dr. Nilam is at present very much active, and she is spearheading the initiative of the International Year of Millets, which is being organized by the Government of India as part of the global initiative. So thank you, Madam, and thank you for your time. And now I would like to welcome Dr. Victor Afari Sefa, our Regional Program Director of ICRISAT's Global Research Program, Enabling Systems, which is hosting this webinar, to deliver his address. Then followed by that, we will have the address from Dr. Patel as a keynote address. Over to you, Dr. Victor. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Saikat. A very good afternoon to all. Distinguished guest of honor, Dr. Nilam Patel, Senior Advisor, Niti Aayog, India. Fellow respected panelists, Dr. Vidya Shankar, Satya Kumar, Head R&D Excellence and Capacity Building, Britannia Industries Limited, Dr. Meenakshi Bajaj, Dietitian, Tamil Nadu Government Multi-Super Speciality Hospital, Chennai, my fellow ICRISAT colleagues, Dr. Saikat Data Mazumda, Principal Scientist and Cluster Leader of our Smart Food and Nutrition and Dietary Behavior, as well as Mr. Ravasi Selvaraj, who is also the CEO of our Agribusiness Innovation Platform, and all cherished participants who are attending this webinar. On behalf of ICRISAT, I would like to extend a happy welcome to all of you to this webinar on leveraging millets for nutrition and health on this memorable occasion of this annual National Nutrition Week of India that is being observed between the 1st and 7th of September this year. The main objective of the National Nutrition Week is to raise awareness about the importance of improved nutrition with a focus on healthy eating habits. It's also aimed at motivating individuals and their households to adopt and understand the benefits of eating foods that comprise of a balanced diet for a healthy lifestyle. Like every year, this year too is being celebrated under a specific theme, Celebrate a World of Flavors. And indeed, India is well known for great food flavors worldwide. Consequently, the goal is to celebrate flavors of varied cultures across the world. It is indeed a great time to expand one's taste by opting to try new foods. Last year, as I understood, the theme of the Annual Nutrition Week was on feeding smart right. This week is, however, being specifically dedicated to raise awareness about proper eating habits and improving nutrition. The COVID-19 pandemic, as we are all aware, brought about new challenges at overcoming underlying global malnutrition crisis and highlighted the importance of eating sustainable foods to combat diverse forms of malnutrition, hidden hunger, and diet-related non-communicable diseases while improving community resilience. According to the National Family Health Survey, round 5, that took place between 2019 and 2021 in India, it has seen no significant improvement in health and nutritional status among its population. Anemia among children under 5 has become significantly worse, with the current prevalence at 67.1% compared to 58.6% according to the 4th round of this same survey. We also know that about 57% of women of reproductive age are known to be anemic in the country. Overweight or obesity is also known to rise among Indian adult males and females. Thus, ensuring an easily accessible, balanced diet to eliminate malnutrition has become more challenging for vulnerable communities, such as people living in poverty, women and children, and senior citizens. Distinguished guests of honor, the UN Sustainable Development Goals also set targets within the aim of eliminating various forms of malnutrition by the year 2030. The government of India has accorded high priority to malnutrition in the country and is implementing several schemes and programs under different ministries, departments, through state governments and union territories administrations to address this underlying situation. To curb the malnutrition crisis across the country, the government has launched the Poshan Abhiyan program, which is a Honorable Prime Minister's overarching scheme for holistic nutrition in India in order to improve nutritional outcomes of children, pregnant women, and lactating mothers. After understanding the impact and prospect of the scheme, the government has amalgamated various programs with similar objectives, notably the Supplementary Nutrition Program and Poshan Abhiyan under one umbrella, with a mission for creating synergies in operations and adopting an integrated approach in nutritional services mechanisms in the Poshan 2.0 program. As you are all aware, the government of India proposed the United Nations and subsequently declared 2023 as the International Year of Millets. This proposal of India was unanimously supported by 72 countries with the United Nations General Assembly, which subsequently approved and declared 2023 as the International Year of Millets, and this happened on the 5th of March 2021. This is great news, and the government of India has decided to celebrate the International Year of Millets to make its people's movement so that Indian millets, recipes, value-added products are accepted globally. ICRISAT acknowledges the guidance and support of the different departments of the government of India, especially ICAR, Indian Institute of Millets Research, and NITI Aayog, and various state government millet missions in helping us to align our activities towards successfully planning and celebrating this International Year of Millets, 2023. I would also like to highlight that ICRISAT envisions a prosperous, food secure, and resilient dryland tropics. Our mission, as you might be aware, is to reduce poverty, hunger, malnutrition, and environmental degradation in the dryland tropics. We are privileged to be celebrating our 50th anniversary as an international agricultural research institute, which was also graced by the Honorable Prime Minister earlier last year. It has introduced biofortified varieties of sorghum, pearl millet, which are rich in iron and zinc. These varieties are helping to address malnutrition, especially anemia, which is prevalent among women and children, both in rural and urban communities. high calcium finger millet lines are also good for bone health. ICRISAT's efforts has led to the development of high protein varieties of pulses, which includes chickpea and pigeon pea, and also high oleic granite varieties, which in combination with millets can address not only malnutrition, but also critical lifestyle diseases by improving diet quality across the globe. ICRISAT braces an entrepreneurial ecosystem in agriculture by opening new avenues for farmers, women in particular. The interventions benefit farmers to adopt improved agricultural practices within the system, which tends to drive for higher productivity and production of these target crops. ICRISAT is working towards enabling sustainable nutrient-sensitive food systems transformation in the drylands by promoting improved health, diverse, safe, and affordable diets, and sustainable produced foods by developing and implementing evidence-based nutrition-sensitive behavioral change communication and value chain interventions. I would also like to take the opportunity to give a brief overview of ICRISAT's registered branded smart food initiative, which is a good global initiative led by ICRISAT along with its partners in India and Africa. Smart food is one of the solutions that contributes to addressing some of the largest global issues in unison, particularly poor diets, environmental degradation, which includes climate change, water scarcity, soil and plant nutrition, as well as rural poverty. Smart Food Initiative focuses on smallholder farmers across the globe with emphasis on Africa and Asia to ensure that rural communities benefit from the increased demand from the health and nutritional benefits of smart food. What exactly is smart food? It fulfills three major criteria. It's good for you, it's good for the planet, and it's good for the farmer. The smart food family encompasses crops such as sorghum, millets, legumes, including chickpea, pigeon pea, groundnut, and green gram. Hence, the Smart Food Initiative contributes to the UN Sustainable Development Goals 1 and 2 to address hunger and also climate action, which is Sustainable Development Goal 13. ICRISAT is working to raise nutritional levels of tribals in southern India through a nutritional intervention called the Giriposhana Project, as I mentioned earlier, in collaboration with the Tribal Welfare Department, the government of Telangana. The Giriposhana initiative is for basically addresses malnutrition among children between 3 to 6 years, adolescent girls, pregnant women, and lactating mothers. The major objective of this project is to provide the population with nutritious food products made up of these crops that I have earlier mentioned, like the millets and pulses, sorghum, in the long run, so as to facilitate improving key nutritional parameters, such as reducing underweight among children and improved hemoglobin levels of the anemic population. It is very important to implement these kinds of millet-based nutritional intervention schemes all over the globe and mainstream millets into regular diets of rural and urban communities. I'm perfectly sure that this webinar, along with others that will be held within this Nutrition Week of India, will increase and create awareness among the vulnerable communities in Africa and by extension to India and by extension to Africa on the importance of eating healthy habits, the role of importance of millets to improve human and nutrition and health. So with these words, I'll take the opportunity once again. Thank you all very much for your kind attention.
Thank you, Dr. Victor, for your overview on ICRISAT's work, especially focusing on enabling food systems transformations in the dryland and mainstreaming millets. Now I would request Madam Dr. Neelam Patel, our guest of honor, to deliver her keynote address. Over to you, Madam.
Okay, a very good afternoon, and I would like to convey my heartfelt congratulations to ICRISAT for organizing this very important webinar on leveraging millets for health and nutrition. It is very important for a country like India, and I commend ICRISAT for their nutrition strategy also to address the global nutrition challenge for improving the nutrition standards and drive change towards promoting health, diversity, and sustainability, incorporating food production and innovation practices. I would like to extend my warm welcome to Dr. Victor Afari, Dr. Saket Datta Majumdar, and also and then Ms. Sudha Vasudevan, Ms. Vidya Shankar Satyakumar, Meenakshi Bajaj, other panelists, officers from the CRISATs and the other officers, those who are here in this particular webinar. And after my presentation, I'm also going to listen the diverse perspective because it is very important for us to incorporate them in our policy briefs and also in the policy framework. And it is good that to have all the industry researchers, policymakers, health practitioners in one forum so that we can communicate with each of them. And I am confident that the deliberations held today in this platform will help to promote millets for nutrition security, better health and economic growth. And in this is the profile of growing millets throughout the country. So you can see that the India is having the potential for millets in every state and with the different types of cultivars. And if we talk about the 5 major producing states, these are Rajasthan, Karnataka, Maharashtra, Uttar Pradesh, and Haryana. And since Dr. Victor has covered extensively several things, so I am not going to repeat that. And now, in the global scenario, India is producing about 80% of the Asia's millets here, and it's contributing for 20% of the global production. So you can see we are a leader, but we could not leverage this benefit. We could not transform this our leadership in promoting our health, nutrition, and also the farmers' income. So means we have to work to address the total ecosystem, why we could not convert it, and what are the gaps, and how we can work together. And but if you see in terms of yield, the production wise, our yield is more than that the global average. And in the green revolution period, just only to emphasize how it is happening, this area decreased about 56%, but productivity increased by 228% because of the continuous development of the new hybrids, and their AICRISAT role is very important and prominent one, since working since years to bring new cultivar, high yielding varieties. And also one more thing, that loss in the diversity. Previously in the 1965 to 70, 20% of total food grain basket was from the millet, but now we are having only 6% and dominated by the rice and wheat. The several regions because of the MSP and other supports for our farmers. So now we have moved towards the rice and wheat. That I have no hesitation to accept this. But even though we are having sufficient production, that can be made available not only to the Indian people, but the outside country also. So the millets offer several win-win situation, and I'm not going to cover this because Victor Ji already covered in his presentation. If as a policy maker, when I have to see the per hectare cost of cultivation, because it is very important. And if you see that the production and productivity of millets has increased at a CAGR of 2.99% and 3.9% in last 6 years. But the increase is very important. It is happening as the cost of production of the millets is low in comparison, making comparison with the cotton and paddy. When the comparison was made with bajra, paddy and cotton, you can see this is how the cost of cultivation is so small than these crops. But we are having in the few challenges in the demand side and supply side, because this in demand we are having now the increasing urbanization and per capita incomes are also increasing, and the changing consumer taste and preferences. So now people are demanding more for millets, and previously it was associated with the poor social status, and in the villages people call it mota anaj. But now the perception has changed. People are coming to adopt it. So, but we don't have that knowledge how to prepare the millets recipes because the lack of traditional knowledge. Then say third is the local shelf life of milled grains. And I have already discussed that we have included the rice and wheat in our PDS system in larger scale. And also this we have noticed that in the our PDS system, millets have not included uniformly. In some of the states they are included, in some of the states they are not included, and also the amount that is also different in the different states. But if we see the supply side changes, there is lack of industrial demand for the value-added millets product, and that is discouraging our farmers from the cultivating of millets. So therefore, if the demand will be there, and then the farmer will come forward, and also they will start growing it. And the second is low profitability, low remuneration of the millets. But here I can tell you that the farmers should get the good prices. Now the few state government, beside the support from the central government in providing the high MSP, now few of the state governments also coming forward. And like last year, Haryana government, they have introduced the Bhavantar, price difference in the market and the MSP prices. So that if the farmers are getting low prices than the MSP, then they will get that difference from the government of Haryana. So this scheme supported the farmers, and I think now the success of this Haryana model can be replicated in other states also. So, and now we have to discuss about give the price incentives to farmers and the input subsidies also, as the farmers are getting the rice and wheat crop. And also the lack of access to quality high and high yielding varieties is recently were had several workshops with the different state governments, farmers, FPOs, self-help group. And then one point came in the discussion that at the village level, we could not develop that value chain for the seed value chain for the millets. So what is happening with these high yielding varieties, seeds are not available at the village level. So this is also one of the things. And the adequate infrastructure in processing technology, unique milling equipment, and to address the total value chain. So these are the supply side challenges and demand side challenges. And from the government of India side, we have brought several initiatives in the recent years, and now you can see the benefit of those initiatives. And first, in the 2018, the government of India declared in the Gazette these millets at the Nutri cereals, and then we brought this National Food Security Mission, FNSM, and after this, several state governments also launched the mission, and the millets were included in the Poshan Mission, Abhiyan, and Ministry of Women and Child Development. And to develop the total infrastructure at the districts level, so districts were identified under the ODOP, one district, one product, and from the Ministry of Food Processing Industries, these 20 districts are getting the special support for the development of processing hub, transportation, marketing, packaging, and branding. And also the millets have been included as a priority crop under the National Food Security Mission, and this is under the Ministry of Agriculture and Farmers Welfare, covering 14 states and 212 districts. So we are having this. We have initiated these things in last few years, and these are supporting our initiatives to promote the millets, not only its production, productivity, but also its consumption and the value addition. And quinoa, this is new crop that is developed by this ICR, released one new variety, and now they suggest to declare the Nutri cereals. 200 startups supported by IIM Hyderabad, technology bootstrapping for 400 plus entrepreneurs. And from the Niti Aayog side, we are going to launch this mission on supporting the millets entrepreneurs through our Atal Innovation Missions. And you might have heard this address of our Finance Minister recently in Karnataka, where she had made that we are going to support the startups and entrepreneurs through Atal Innovation Missions of the Niti Aayog. There we are going to select the new startups, those who want to come in these sectors, and those who need some special supports from our side. And this already covered. So these 7 sutras schemes, these are launched by the government of India. So first is enhancing production and productivity of millets, that you are seeing this mostly the Ministry of Agriculture and Farmers Welfare and ICR with the help of KVK, the state government. We are making effort also for enhancing production and productivity as the millets can be grown in the rain-fed areas. And after making all efforts, we could bring the 50% area under only the irrigation. So we are having still 50% area under rain-fed, and this is mostly good area where the millets can be promoted. And also the millets can be grown in the low fertile soil. And as you know, the one of the indicator that showing the soil health is organic carbon, and average organic carbon content of the soil is varying from 0.4 to 0.5%. So even these type of soils, these millets can be grown successfully. So we are making effort here, and also we are bringing millets under organic and natural farming, so that the farmers again can get the good remunerative prices for their produce. And then nutrition and health benefits that we are going to discuss today in lots. And for nutrition and health benefits, the processing and the packaging and branding, and then also inclusion in the periods, and then also in the Anganwadi, for the midday school. So the state government are taking the initiatives here. Then value addition and recipe development, entrepreneurs, startup and collective development, awareness creation, branding, labeling and promotion, international outreach, policy interventions for mainstreaming. So here in NITI Aayog side, we are working on the policy interventions for mainstreaming, and also we need the support of AIP-ICRISAT, because you are having experience of working in the other Asian countries and also in Africa. So how we can bring the policy intervention to bridge the gaps which are there in the total millets value chain, in terms of production, productivity, consumption, or quality control, or infrastructure development. So here we are looking for the better, looking for the support again, because this task was into us, a special task from our cabinet secretary. So, and this nutrition and health benefit steps, these are the steps taken by the government of India to generate awareness regarding health and nutrition benefits. Eat right campaign, these all the ministries, all the governments of India have given the task to generate the awareness at their level for the health and nutrition benefits. And also from the NITI Aayog side, we are going to start this publicity campaign, and there also we need the support of AIP-ICRISAT and other panelists, those who are leader in their field. If they can support NITI Aayog in our publicity campaign to bring the good success story and some good case studies for the benefit of the other people. And also to steps to avail technology support, we are giving the special support from the ICR, to Center Agricultural Universities, and ICMR, NIN, IUSIM, all these institutes, they can avail the technology support, promote biofortification of millets, and this AIP-ICRISAT already is doing in this direction, and several ICR institutes are giving the task for bringing this biofortification. And task force 2 has been formed to commission studies by international reputed organization, and to also generate awareness among mothers through mothers committees of Anganwadi. These are the few of the steps taken by the government of India. And now I would like to mention few of the initiatives of the AIP-ICRISAT. AIP-ICRISAT is the government of India's knowledge partner, and because it is having the vast experience in the areas of millet, they are aware about the genetic diversity. They are having the good planting in genetic material, working their scientific group of scientists who are working not only on the production but promoting nutrition and everything. So I think the role of the AIP-ICRISAT is very important here. And also the gene bank. I think we have to make a plan for the promotion, not only for India, for other countries also. So the strength of AIP-ICRISAT gene banks as the world repository of the sorghum and millet germplasm, it is good to develop more variety out of using this gene bank. And also that AIP-ICRISAT has developed the commercialized biofortified varieties. So now it is time how we can enhance the seed production of the seeds of these fortified varieties so that it can reach to our farmer easily. What is happening? We are having very now good variety, but it's not going to the farmer. So I think in our policy framework, we have to address this also. There should be some mechanism so that these our good varieties can reach to our farmer easily. And also, and I think AICRISAT can be an important partner, and its role going to be very important future also with the government of India in generating the further evidence on health benefits of millets, so that we can take the benefit of our maximum production that we are having in the export of our produce market produce outside the India also. So there here also to generate the more scientific evidence, it is also important. And we are very happy that AICRISAT has launched the Global Smart Food Initiatives, which promotes millets and smart food with the slogan "Good for you, good for planet, and good for farmer." And I think this should be the slogan for all, because these millets are good for our health, and also these are very climate resilient, need very less fertilizer, very less, so they are conserving water also, natural sources, and also protecting the soil health, environment, and good for farmers also because of their climate resilient nature. So this I would like to compliment that for bringing this global initiative, and also the compendium that the initiatives for launching the compendium of millet-based recipes. This also, and their center of excellence that already Victor ji covered. So I think this Niti Aayog is very much willing to work with the AICRISAT in the view of the upcoming International Year of Millets. So if we will work together, then we can bring several good initiatives, and also support our states, and also support agriculture research system and different other organizations for the promotion of millets in totality. And these are the few initiatives from the Niti Aayog side. I think AICRISAT is already aware, as we have recently had done 29th of August. We are already organized a workshop, and there all mostly officers, I think more than 73, 74 officers, scientists from the AICRISAT attended at this meeting. And with this, I would like to thank AICRISAT for inviting me, for giving me the opportunity. Because of the time constraint, I have not covered few things which we will discuss further. With this, thank you. And I would like to hear from other fellow panelists to understand the different other things of the millets. Thank you.
Thank you, madam. Thank you for this insightful keynote address, which you have provided an overview right from farm to fork of the challenges which lies in the millet value chain. But we're also happy to see that you have also highlighted some of the successful case studies, especially highlighting on the Haryana model, how the policy intervention is driving millet into the value chain and benefiting the farmers. Your elucidation of the strategy and the themes of the Government of India has also provided us clarity and direction. And now we would like to further brainstorm and develop strategic collaborations to see how we could take millet from what you said as mota anaj to something which is now desirable and actually in demand, so that we create a demand pull for these crops, ultimately leading not only to benefits for the farmers, but also for the health and nutrition. So thank you, madam. And now we move to our presentations and discussions on the theme leveraging millets for health and nutrition. And I would request all participants to post their questions in the chat section. And also, madam, some participants could not see some of your slides, so maybe we can share with them later on, ma'am, if you allow us to do that.
Yes, sir. I will share with you, and you can share with them. No problem.
Yes, madam. So that would be great. So I will make one presentation with some of the case studies which AICRISAT is doing, a small presentation to further highlight and let our participants know what the works we are doing. So I'll just share a slide. Is the screen visible? Manisha?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir, it is visible.
Yeah, thank you. So just give you quickly an overview about ICRISAT, because a lot of our participants may not be knowing. So we are based in Hyderabad, and we are a non-profit, apolitical international agriculture research institute, and we envision a prosperous, food secure, and resilient dryland tropics to reduce poverty, hunger, malnutrition, and environmental degradation across the globe. And our approach is inclusive market-oriented development. Madam has highlighted on the diversity of our gene bank, and ICRISAT is a world repository not only for sorghum and millets, but we also hold the repository for chickpea, pigeon pea, and groundnut. At ICRISAT, we have been conducting studies to profile these accessions of sorghum and pearl millet. So that is where we start off with understanding what are their nutritional traits and identify lines with the desirable nutritional and prebiotic traits. That is something very important as we talk about nutraceuticals and mainstreaming millets into nutraceutical for functional foods. ICRISAT's crop improvement material has been shared and resulted in release of 1,224 varieties in 81 countries. And recently, we have been awarded the Africa Food Prize 2021 for improving the food security in sub-Saharan Africa. A little more details you can see about our gene bank. 128,691 accessions from 144 countries and more than 1.5 million samples distributed across the globe. We have a gene bank in Africa, in Niamey, Bulawayo, and also we also contribute to the global gene bank in Salvador. So as you can see here, there are accessions of cultivated as well as wild. Sorghum 48,352, pearl millet 24,373, and then you have the finger millet 7,519, and of course there are collections also of the small millets. Just to briefly talk about our smart food initiative, which Madam also has highlighted. This is we call them smart food because they are climate resilient and also nutritious. And we are trying to generate evidence. And this evidence will come as we work collectively together with the industry and the academia across the globe to actually prove that they are good for you and good for the planet, because they are climate resilient, environmentally friendly, requiring low water. And also ultimately they would be good for farmers, because these are the crops which would survive climate change and high temperature changes. And in course of time, if the farmers are able to grow and we create a demand pool for them, they would be able to sustain their livelihoods, especially the smallholder farmers in the semi-arid tropics. So as already highlighted, these are crops are sorghum and millets. And at this moment that we work we work on this initiative along with partners in Africa. As you can see there, we have Fanatpran, Apari, along with ICRISAT, and also Koraf and Farah. And in Asia, we work with Apari, which is, and also this is a think tank for mainstreaming smart food initiative through advocacy and policy recommendation. It acts and provides support to nurturing research and R&D, and that's where we also look at fundraising to support and the R&D, and also catalyze demand creation through publicity, promotion, and value chain interventions. Yesterday itself, we had a particular program in Rwanda as part of an event there, and this smart food initiative has been able to bring in a number of stakeholders again to discuss how millet could be mainstreamed into this food systems across the globe. Madam talked about value chain interventions, and as you can see here, we have been able to look at and identify what are the requirements. So development of sorghum and millet value chain needs a network of systematic interactions. And you can see here, and it is to be sort of the wheel has to be driven by the government policy and the political wheel. And that's where I think, Madam, your speech and your talk and your guidance is very important to us. And the different government, as we can see in India, is actually driving along with the farmer producers, the private sector. The logistics is important, the publicity and campaign is important. Capacity building of different stakeholders is again very important here. Marketing and consumption, research and development and innovation together will drive this wheel and build up sustainable and smart value chains across the globe. So it's not only in India. And in yesterday's meeting in Rwanda, we were able to highlight and tell them that, yes, indeed, India has moved a long way, and there needs to be a lot of South-South collaboration to take things forward. What are we looking at as we move along? We are looking at actually moving something. If you see here presently, this is what we have. We have scattered land ownership. Our value chain is small and medium scale. And then the consumer is also sort of, it is wholesaler to the retailer. That's the sort of value chain we are talking about at this moment. But we want to move into consolidation in terms of consolidating the farmers through farmer producer organizations and FPOs. We are also looking at getting large processing units along linking to the primary and secondary processing units, which are presently at a SME scale. We are looking at consumer segmentation, and I think that is where our next speaker, Dr. Next speaker from Britannia Industries, would be able to tell us, Dr. Vidya Shankar, more about it, because unless we understand the consumer and then realize how to personalize and address their issues in terms of their requirement, we will not be able to sustain their demand pull. So that is something we are trying to move around. So we want to create market demand. We want to have enough back-end processing and customized products, millet-based products, as we move forward. Let us quickly look at the sustainable nutrition challenges. And as you can see here, the global nutrition challenges are triple burden of malnutrition, undernutrition, overnutrition, and micronutrient deficiencies. We are looking at looming lifestyle diseases of diabetes, cardiovascular diseases, and gut health. And this is all because one is the lifestyle, but also the lifestyle includes the quality of your diet. And if you look at presently the quality of your diet, it is mostly tilted towards fast food and junk foods, and millet does not find much of use in these diets. So as part of our efforts in transforming the food systems, we are looking also at behavioral change, because unless behavioral change comes, this change in diet diversity cannot happen. So at this moment, there is lack of diet diversity and unhealthy diets. So we need to understand this and then tailor our actions towards that, so that we are able to change this dietary diversity, bring in more diverse diets, and go towards healthy diets. There is lack of knowledge and nutrition, dietary diversity, and health and hygiene. So this awareness creation is another important area. And there is limited availability and affordability of nutritious foods. So the food environment needs to be more tailored to be more affordable foods, and of course, quality and safe foods. So we are talking about a center of excellence in nutrition, food processing, and safety, not only for drylands, but also globally, where we have the interventions at the community level, at the market level. Of course, we have, as an ICRISAT, our core strength is agriculture, but we need to also work with the cross-cutting themes and stakeholders in food safety and nutrition education, which will ultimately lead to the smallholder farming communities growing more nutrient-rich and quality produce and access to safe and nutritious food. So this is something which we would like to take forward together with all our stakeholders. And now a few examples here, which I would like to highlight in terms of our intervention. And this is a project which we are doing in the tribal areas of Telangana. We are a center of excellence in tribal affairs of the Government of India, Ministry of Tribal Affairs. And we are running a project called Giri Poshna, which is at present catering to around 35,000 women and children. The major objectives of the project are to address the PVTG population with nutritious food products, and we have been able to provide and produce ready-to-eat and ready-to-cook products, which are now going into the Anganwadi system in the tribal areas, to highlight that this particular project is not only supplying food, but we have also been able to mobilize the tribal women into self-help groups. They have been given the processing units, which are FSSAI licensed, and they procure locally and produce ready-to-eat and ready-to-cook millet-based and pulse-based foods. Because when we talk about millet, it cannot be in isolation, because you need to bring in the balance of protein. So millet and pulse-based foods are being produced and supplied directly to the Anganwadis. And also these units are able to sell directly in the open market, because They follow all the FSSAI norms, the food safety norms. They are aware of HACCP and other aspects of food safety, and that's where we have been able to make this difference within the community. Another project which was done in Karnataka along with Akshay Patra Foundation, a pilot research on millet-based food meals was tested and on growth and acceptability. And as part of the result, the government of India, actually based on this study, has issued a letter to the states to suggest to include millets in the school feeding programs. And the government of Karnataka has already approved, and subsequently other state governments have also moved in that direction. So we would look forward to work together, especially in the internationally of the millets, with different stakeholders, especially the private sector, to take this millet movement further and make a difference to the communities. As I talked about the processing and value addition, which Madam also has highlighted, and in addition to putting up these processing units, which are now run, especially in Andhra Pradesh, Telangana, and Orissa, we are working closely with the Orissa Livelihood Mission. We are also talking in terms of getting into Assam as part of Assam Millet Mission at this moment. But also we are, as part of all those missions, we are also trying to see how the seed systems can be strengthened, because Madam highlighted that, and which is very critical, that if you do not get quality seeds in the long run, you'll not be able to sustain this movement. So the seed system is also something which we are working on. I highlighted on the food safety aspects, and that comes with training and capacity building. The women entrepreneurs, we bring them here at ICRISAT, and also wherever we establish these units, we are going ahead and setting up these units and providing them training in the areas of food processing and food safety management systems, including HACCP, food packaging, labeling and shelf life, FSSAI regulations and guidelines, and of course, documentation and record keeping and business planning. So with this, we are able to actually create a pool of nutri entrepreneurs at the grassroots level, which in the long term will make a huge impact across the millet value chain and impacting health and nutrition. Some blue sky research which we are undertaking at ICRISAT. Now there is a lot of talk about plant-based meat analogs and proteins, and we have been able to successfully incorporate millets and prove that millets actually add value to some of these products which are being tried out. All these days, the focus has been only on pulses to make meat analogs and high protein food. But our study has clearly shown that if we are able to incorporate millets into such products, we are able to improve the texture, mouthfeel, and of course, enhance the nutritional properties due to incorporation of millets. For example, in this particular product, finger millet was incorporated, so it improved the texture, but also the calcium content and the other micronutrients improved as part of the incorporation. So this is something which industry needs to look into and work. We would like to work closely with the industry to promote millet into some of these categories. And finally, I would like to highlight that we need to generate more and more evidence on how millets are good for health and nutrition. Some work already has been initiated by us at ICRISAT. We have led a scientist from 4 countries and 7 organizations, a team, and we have been able to generate evidence on millets, health and nutrition benefits. We have these publications here which you can go through, and these evidence show that millets have the potential in reducing iron deficiency anemia, improve hemoglobin levels, managing and reducing the risk of developing diabetes, as millets are rich in fiber and low GI. I'm sure these aspects will be touched upon by our subsequent speakers. It improves the lipid profile, and of course, it also not only gives calcium, but it has also been proved to increase the calcium retention in the human body and hence improve the bone health and other calcium-related deficiencies. So with this, I would just like to again thank for this opportunity, and especially to all the other panelists who have come forward. And just to highlight that recipe is a very important part, and documentation of traditional recipes is very important. And as Madam has already highlighted, we have a book called The Millet Movement of India, which has been documented with all recipes. This is available on Amazon, and if somebody wants it, please do contact us also. We might be able to help it get to you. So thank you so much. And now I would like to call upon Dr. Vidya Sagar, who is the head R&D excellence and capacity building, and at the Britannia Industries Limited, Bangalore, to present his views on the industry perspective on millets and nutrition. So welcome, Dr. Vidyasagar. And I'd like to briefly share the profile of Dr. Vidyasagar. Vidyashankar. Vidyashankar Satyamurthy is currently working as Head R&D, Excellence and Capability Building in Britannia Industries Limited. His previous stints were at Marico Limited, Mumbai, and Himalaya Wellness, Bangalore. Mr. Satyakumar is a PhD in biochemistry from CFTI in Mysore, and he specializes in cholesterol and bile metabolism. He has 25 national and international publications and 2 patents. So, Dr. Vidyasankar, I think we can have a discussion here, or would you like to present? What would you choose?
No, I will open up with my few thoughts so that that
Yeah,
will be
so
right.
if I may, I have a few questions which I have jotted down. And first important aspect is, see, we have been hearing a lot about the millets being mainstreamed, but then we also have this challenge where industry is not readily accepting these millets, not because they do not know that they are nutritionally superior, but there may be some other reasons. So can you please highlight what are the critical aspects of qualifying millets from the industry perspective? This is very important for us to know because we talk about high yields and other things, which we all know how to do it. But then ultimately the last mile is where we have this challenge. So over to you, Dr. Vidyash.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Saikat Mujumdar, for inviting and providing an opportunity to participate. And I also uh, convey my regards to all the fellow uh, members who are present on the panel, and also the opening speaker, and also the panel from the Niti Aayog. So just to put it across the industry perspective on the millets part of it, if you look at it, like industry looks from the perspective, it is of course the millets are nutritionally very enriched, but only the part, like only it is good in one aspect doesn't make you win for the rest of the things. The whole ecosystem has to put together, and finally the demand has to be created, and further it can be really it can be catered with the supply chain. So where is the demand and how the demand has to be created? There is a certain habits which has been developed in the communities and with the society part of it. We have to really deep dive into understanding the consumerism on that part, so that like understanding the consumer centric needs, what are the gaps, and identifying the gaps, and finally getting the data into that kind of a thing, and where that really gap is there, and finally analyzing that kind of needs and what it can be addressed through the millets part of it. That is one of the critical questions what it comes into the understanding the consumers part. The second part is basically when the industry looks into the aspects, actually the porters, the 5 rules part of it, like where 3 are very important. One is the cost leadership is the one of the critical aspects, like where the industry should have that kind of a leverage where we can have the cost leadership into that. The second part is like whether the products can really have a differentiation part of it. In prospect of it might be from the functionality perspective, and what are the features what we'll be adding into the products to get that functionality into that aspects. So in those millets, actually the first part actually obviously there is a crunch in the supply part of it, because if you look at the cost leadership part of it, like where the supplies has to be very stored, and finally it has to be very optimized, and also it should be available throughout, and also the storage capacities has to be built, and finally the processing systems has to be built at the back end, and finally the storage and stability aspect also has to be there. And finally being a certain kind, because of the high protein and the high fat and the high mineral content, so these millets also are prone for stability issues. So that is one of the areas where technologies also has to be raveling up if the demand is created on that. The second part to that on that is the processing of these millets, and how the supply chains can be really, it can be producing and supplying to the industries part of it if everything goes well. And the third part is on the focus point, like what are the kinds of a product, and the products, and the regime of the products what we want to put it, like it might be ready to eat or ready to cook or ready to drink kind of a thing. So these are the three major categories, like where we want to put it, and also on the vegan side part of it, whether we want to put it across any kind of alternatives to the meat part of it, where we can really label it for the high nutritious, and it should not be only the nutritious part of it, it should be delicious. So I can put it across as nutrilicious part of it on that. So if you want to make a nutritious product, and finally we want to go to the consumer and we want to look at it, look, this is nutritious, which is already what you are really loving in the markets, like what is available today, which is really compatible for your taste palette. So I have a recipe, look at this, and finally whether you are going to buy this for a price. So this is something like truth of the moment, or moment of truth, what it happens. So the first moment of truth has to convert itself into the last moment of truth, so that like the consumer will just buy the product for a price, and that repeatability has to happen. And for that, actually, the whole system has to be really, it has to be geared up, and finally the if the demand is created and the supply has to be uninterruptively, it has to be facilitating the things. And if you look at from the uninterruption of the supply point of time, like how to really manage this with the taste palette of the communities, and for the different age groups or the focus groups, where it starts, like how we want to do the things. So at everything starts at the educational level, so catch them at young. So children's are the really the great area where we can really look at it, the school training and the school programs. And the second one is, so mother is the first teacher for every child, and everything starts at the home. So home is the first target where we have to look at it, the housewives part of it, like what is the culture, what is the tiffin boxes are filled with, what are the different kind of the recipes they can make it, and even the household the items what can be really packed and send it to the school. It might be for a travel brunch or a lunch kind of a thing, or it might be at the breakfast times. So this is where we have to make the habitual changes, and the habits has to be changed at the root level and catch them at time. That is one of the aspects. And second, when it comes to the other part of what is available in the markets today, so it is everything is westernized today. Everything is available in the internet. People are aware about those things, and there are a certain mature technologies which is available, which is the wheat-based products or the rice-based products or the certain kind of a cereals or the mixes part of it. So all these, whether it can be replaced as a part as or as the whole from the millets, is one of the questions where we want to look at it with the same kind of a pellet, with the same kind of a shelf life, with the same kind of stability in the consumer's hand, where the likability and also the desirability and the taste prospects really matches. So this is the critical aspect, like where we want to look at it. And finally the habits has to be built, and finally the repeat customers visit, and also the branding is very important on this, where the brands are built on basically on the taste and trust part of it. So trust comes from the quality aspects, where the supply chains play a very important role, and also the branding also goes with the packaging nonetheless to tell about that. And if you look at the benefits part of it and the millets part of it, there are the health claims part of it. But we are not my opinion is very clear on this, because whenever you are putting onto the health, whether it is for the preventive health or for the curative part of it, so generally we are targeting this into the preventive side. So that has to start at the home, and finally the nutrition part and as well as the wellness has to be talked more than to the curative part. So rather than focusing into the diabetes or the weight management part of it, this is the outcomes part of it. But everything, the root starts at the strong immunity basis, and the muscle building and the strong growth and the strong mental development. These are the aspects where we have to look at it for the growth perspective. And the second part in the as the life cycle goes in the any kind of a person, so then actually at the mid stage, actually where we can look at the maintenance part of it, like where there is a requirement of the protein, there is a requirement of the strong amount, a good amount of the minerals, which is really available from the naturalistic aspects rather than fortification routes. So this is one is the thing with the naturalistic part of it, and another one is the fortification that we can really we can make a big talking point on that. So this is, you look at this is like more bioavailable, and finally assimilation is good enough and the cells can really look at it. And also lot of in vitro studies, like for example like a cell culture studies can be put up to show that actually like how the cell survives and how the cell metabolic rates can be increased. And finally, even it might be the glucose transport studies, or it might be the uh, the reduction in the apoptosis part of it, or it might be the proliferation of the good somatic cells. So these kind of a smaller studies, to put it as the to convert that fiction into the scientific aspects from these kind of a nutrients, is the another way to just catch the young minds at the academic levels, where the researchers can be put across. So then actually the in vitro biology married with some kind of a good amount of the multicentric studies, like what has been published now, like what Majumdar was showing in the studies kind of a thing, and also a good amount of technologies on the food processing for the millets. So those patents and on the machineries part of it from the milling, where we can have a collaborations with some of the big names like a Buller kind of a thing, and finally we can really make certain kind of an impact from the engineering aspects, so that like low cost and the medium cost and the heavy costly instrumentation, whether it can be really brought into the picture for the food processing part of it, so that the supply chains can be really brought in. To put it across totally, like if you look at like how we want to take it forward, it is understanding the consumer, changing the consumer habits, and finally we want to really deep dive into the food habit, like because India is a multi diversified nation, and also we have to understand like where, what kind of food, what kind of preparations are there, whether we have to make local very vocally we have to do that part of it, and we have to carve a very different strategy for this. Like it might be a state wise, because like 28 to 29 states with a different culture, with a different outfits part of it, like to unify this with this kind of a food. So food is one of the varieties what we want, and also some of the adjacent industries like enzymes or the flavor houses or the fat part of it, like how it will interact with these recipes making. And one of the fantastic recipes which will be accepted by universally, whether we want to make the mass production kind of a thing, whether is it possible, so whether we want to scale it up in that way. That is the one of the thought process where we want to happen. So to take an example from our industry, it is like the bakery industry part of it. Today we have the sweet biscuits, that is the short dough biscuits or the hard dough biscuits or the cracker biscuits kind of a thing, like where these are the main raw material is the wheat or the maida part of it, and we can replace it with the whole grinds part of it, and where we can replace to a certain extent with the millets kind of a thing. This is something like a part can be deleted, whether still the market uptake will be similar. So that is the one of the question marks where we want to look at it and address. So similarly in the dairy industry, whether we can do some kind of a a mixology kind of a thing, where a certain amount of the portion from this sprouted ragi or a certain things can be used and made it as a ready to drink kind of a food, so that it will be more nutritious from the protein perspective. But the formulations has to be really looked in, because there is a rich in minerals, and finally chelation happens and there will be a settling amount, so that a good amount of the surface chemistry aspects also has to be looked into that during the formulations part of it, apart from the recipe harmonization part. If you look at it, the ready to cook kind of a thing, like whether the premixes can be looked in from the bakery aspect, or from the ready-made khichdi kind of a thing, like how it can be really rotated, because we are fascinated towards oats. Like if you look at the brand like oats, because oats also is one of the grinds what we look at it. But the what is available in our own country, which is really has got traditional aspects, and our genes are made for interacting with these kind of digestive elements, so that like really the whole aspect can be brought together, so that like the whole the gut microbiome can also be lifted up. And finally the food is all about keeping you the overall health, and also it is I can tell you it is actually it is a mind, and also to the gut. Actually it's the mind and gut balance what it happens, so that the interaction between the gut and mind is very spectacular to take a good amount of health and also the happiness part of it when it comes to together. So philosophically also food is inclined aligned with that kind of persuasion part of it, like where it is fed with a lot of love and care, and a certain kind of a feelings part of it. So food is all about the tradition, it is about the culture, it is about the taste, it is about spreading the love. So how we want to take it up, so that has to be really discussed and taken up. And finally we want to wipe out a certain kind of attack. This is only for the poor man's staple. So that we have to put it across in a very front foot and say, look, this is like something like it's a bright minds or the rich minds desire. Like we have to incorporate these kind of millets into the recipes or the food what we want to consume. So that's where I just wanted to park Saikat. Just I will take as we move forward, Saikat. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you, Vidyashankarji. I think you have touched upon a number of points, but I just wanted to highlight a few and get you a few responses from you. One is that you are saying there are issues of supply chain. Am I right? And is it only
Yeah.
supply chain or is it also the price? And when you look at some of the models which have been adopted by the industry for other commodities, for example, if you look at the potato value chain, which is used by the potato chips industry, they get into something called contract farming, if I'm right. So, is there something similar which can be done for millets? And if it's, and why is it not happening? That is something which I wanted to ask, because for us, if the industry is coming forward and getting into some sort of a contract farming with our farmers, we can support the industry with the backward linkage. But somehow we find it as a challenge till now that this is not happening in a big way, unlike which has happened for potato or tomatoes for the tomato ketchup industry. So, what is the challenge here? If you could highlight on that and
Yeah,
other,
so
yeah,
this is
yeah.
again, it is the demand creation substantially with the existing technologies, because to come up with the new existing technologies is something very difficult, very different, where it requires, because the business runs on, basically we have to have a complete north side where we have to have a hatke thinking or the innovative thinking part of it, and where we have to have the market reads, how the market growth happens kind of a thing from the business point of view. With that, actually the leadership focus should be there, where you should have a risk taking appetite should be built there. And also when you're scaling it up, so it takes a lot of time and the failures are there, and finally we have to step up, and finally we have to scale it up with a lot of perseverance, and as well as some kind of patience is required over there, where you have to hang on to that, and finally we have to move ahead. So while changing the market dynamics or the changing the market patterns today, if you look at the consumption of the wheat, like for example, if I take from the bakery industry's perspective or the potato, like the chips industry perspective, what has happened? There is a flavor which has been developed. So potatoes are really, it is been accepted. And finally, if you look at the corn, actually, that is much more preferred. And if you look at the wheat, because of the gluten properties, where the baking elements, what it really gets in, and it has got its own tradition, and the taste comes with the acceptability kind of a thing. But when you convert this into the millet recipes, the texture or the taste will not meet the ends where the consumer prefers, and he comes with the same kind of the acceptance part of it. So though they know that actually the baked fruits or the fried foods actually has its own limitation of the health implications and other aspects, but however, when the taste comes into the forefront, that's what I want, I mentioned actually. So we are not getting, we are catering into the, not to the crowd, for the major population will be the healthy population, and finally they want to enjoy the food and they want to celebrate the food part of it. Food is all about the happiness part of it. So when you look at this millet, if you can really bring up to that par excellence with that kind of a recipe twist, with a certain kind of a enablers like enzymes or the modifiers or the stabilizers or the emulsifiers, whether that magic has to happen at the recipe level, and the technology also has to match it up. So whether you want to make the millet based biscuits or the millet based bakery items or the products or the millet based extruded products kind of a thing, where it is have got a high acceptance part of it. So there the key resides in the technology or the recipes. The recipes is the key over here, like whether we want to make a profit out of that, and the margins has to be really, it has to be uh, imperative, and finally it should be attractive to the business. Because generally business, if you look at it, the thumb rule, actually if you look at the net profit will be around like 15 to 16% kind of a thing. Then we want to have around, with the net operating income should be somewhere like if you look at that part of it, like it should be like not less than 30% of that thing. So the recipes and the whole technology and the value chain has to be built in such a manner that we should be able to make that kind of a 30% of the gross margin with the volumes. And finally, this has to be operated at the industrial scales. And finally, the technologies has to interact. The machinability is the one of the critical factors when you're using the millet based products. And these, whatever the technologies today, if you look at from the industry perspectives, because this is designed for a specific raw material, so to convert it directly to the millets, it will be a tough challenges, and it can only happen through phases. And coming to your the exact question, like the backward integration part of it with the contract farming kind of a thing. So whether there is commercial crops, yes, the sugarcane is there because there is a backward the backward integration will happen from the sugarcane factories, and there is a promising prices is also given by the declared by the government and other agencies part of it over here. So whereas from the millets perspective, what happens, that kind of a demand is not created from the industry. So for that, actually what happens, what is available in the market today, so that is for one is for their own household, and few amounts of the things it can be from the liquor industries, like for example like sorghum, it's really used in the liquor industries, whether it is a beneficial compared to the bagasse part of it, like from the sugarcane part of it, like what it is available there. So if you want to look at the economics of this crop, like where from the uh, plate, or it from the crop when it starts from the seed, or it from farm to fork kind of a thing, like what are the economics and what are the byproducts it can be looked in. And finally the whole the value chain has to be really redefined, and finally the value addition where all it can happen, and finally how it can be made it as a the value chain oriented profitability, how it can be made it, and finally how it can be made lucrative. So that is where we have to look at it, like while you are starting from the farm, how it is processed, how it is packed, and how it is moved into the shelves, or with the different channels. And those are the things where you have to put it across. So though how much ever you put it across, if the demand is not created, that kind of the crave or the craving will not be happening from the consumer perspective. So then automatically this will never be a lucrative one or attractive one. The only key thing is we have to make certain recipes which works in contemporary times. So that is the key there. And world is about VUCAs, that is actually it is very volatile, and finally it is very competitive, and also it is ambiguous part of it. So we have to understand this, and finally we have to march forward, like how to make the quick innovations into that, and finally we have to retrofit to the expectations of the consumers, because at the end of the day consumer is the king, and he decides whether we will be the industries will make it the moment of truth for him, so that like industries will really back for the consumers. That's where the bottom line resides.
Yeah, I think Dr. Vidyasankar, you have touched upon a number of important points, and of course you said of demand creation and recipe creation which are acceptable. So I think, don't you think that the industry has to take the lead in this? And of course the government policies are there. Madam has already talked about what is happening in terms of strengthening the value chain, but I'm not sure if that level of traction is we are able to create for this millet. So how do you think we can work together? Maybe, Madam, would you like to tell something, Madam, here? Because maybe we want to create a consortium with industry and take this forward. Otherwise, it will just become a discussion point. Yeah.
Yes, yes. In fact, in my presentation, I told you that we have given the responsibility to develop the policy framework, why it is not happening. Besides having the so much production, industry is ready. Industry is concerned about the availability of the material. Farmers are telling they don't have the market. Consumer are ready to buy, the product are not available. So I think these things are missing. Nodes are missing. So now we have to complete the chain. So I think it is very good. So that is why I am listening, and we can have a group.
Yes,
And
madam.
if we can have the small group work for 2-3 hours in a go, and then reach to some level. Okay, it is there, but desirable at this one, gaps is there. So we will include them in our new policy framework that on which we are working. So Vidya Shankarji has pointed out very pertinent point and very important one also. So I think not a consortium, we will make the consortium, it will be very big, and
Right.
you're not able to
Manage.
converge at a single
Yeah.
point.
Yeah.
You have a small expert group
Right.
who can give the really points for the policymakers, for the farmers, whatever you want. Even can we have few identified FPOs who can work with the farmer? They can be have the hub and spoke model type things. Can we think over it? So it is good. Yes.
Yeah, maybe some of the FPOs can be
Yeah.
have adopted by the industries for some time
Yes.
and see how
Yes.
what sort of
Yes.
quality issues can be addressed. So thank you, Dr. Vidya Shankarji. Thank you so much for your insights.
Yeah.
Madam, we have some question online which I would like to answer before I ask you. So there's one question online from Dr. Rupa. It says, thank you, Dr. Neelam, for your insightful talk. Will be nice to know of policies in place coming from support of organic production of millets and tracing produce. This is to Dr. Neelam. Is there any policy on organic?
In fact, we are having already one PKVY, Paramparagat Krishi Vikas Yojana. There we are supporting the organic cultivation and the farmers are getting support. So that scheme is already in place and we are having two certification programs. One is yes, that the second is third party, and that is also by the APIDA. If you will do, the growers can take the support through the PKVY, Paramparagat Krishi Vikas Yojana, to grow the organic cultivation of the millets. And then after this production, they can adopt the certification process. And once the certification process will complete, then this, if third party, then it is suitable for the domestic consumption. And if it is third party, then it can go for the export. But if it is the PGS system, group system, then it is suitable for the domestic consumption. So we are having this motion and support for the organic cultivation.
Thank you, madam. Thank you so much. So thank you, Dr. Vidya Shankarji. And now I would like to invite Dr. Meenakshi Bajaj, who is a dietitian with the Tamil Nadu government, multi-super specialty hospital, Chennai, to enlighten us on the most important aspect of metabolic health benefits of millets. She is currently working as dietitian with the multi-super specialty hospital in Chennai. She is a co-editor in a number of journals, especially like the Journal of Indian Dietetic Society, Member Board of Studies, Department of Nutrition and Dietetics, Periyar University. She is Member Board of Studies, Department of Food Science and Technology, the Gandhigram Rural Institute. She is also a member of board in a number of ethics committees. So, madam, I request you to kindly make your presentation on this very important topic of millets and its metabolic and health benefits of millets. Over to you, madam. Thank you.
At the outset, I'm truly grateful to ICRISAT. My warm regards to Dr. Neelam ma'am, Dr. Victor sir, Dr. Vidya Shankar sir, Dr. Majumdar sir, and the entire fraternity of ICRISAT along with the delegates. Give me a moment, I'll share my screen. Are my slides visible, sir?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
So today, when we have been talking about a lot of millets all around us, we do need to understand that what is the implication of consumption of millets when it comes to metabolic health. And it's not rocket science for me to say when I say metabolic health, obviously I'm looking at all the non-communicable diseases, obviously, importantly, also inclusive of gut health. And as Dr. Vidya Shankar sir very clearly pointed out, the gut-brain axis. You know, in the COVID pandemic, there are a lot of patients whom we lost because of poor gut health or gut dysbiosis, wherein a patient walked into opportunistic infections because of poor immunity status and poor gut health. So with this basic background, I would want to make a mention that every time you eat or drink, you're either feeding a disease or treating one. So we are not only going to be talking about millets with reference to infancy, pregnancy, lactation, apart from the general population, also there is an important sect. You know, when it comes to the hospitalized patients, we have the post-operative patients. We have the oncology patients who look at, you know, something which is soothing, at the same time very nourishing, and a small packet with a powerhouse of nutrition. So it's fortunate to say that when I work with the multi-specialty hospital, we have a large chunk of patients who are onco patients, and we provide them a millet-based drink. And when they go home, they take a recipe from us as to how it was prepared. So with a basic background of this, I would also want to make a mention that where millets have been, being promoted for non-communicable diseases, we do understand with IDF 2021 data that 4 in 5 people with diabetes live in the low and the middle income countries. And the numbers are soaring, whether it comes to India or globally. We find that almost 3.7 million population is diabetic, and 50% of them we lose to mortality. Now, I would say one thing is, in the post-colonial independent India, the prevalence of diabetes was on the lower side. Why was it on the lower side? Is access to food, access to quality food was unfortunately not there. The same thing happened when it came to World War II. A lot of soldiers came back home after losing their life during the war. But unfortunately, when they came back home, they lost life. You know why they lost life? Because there was a sudden exposure to too much of overnutrition. And we lost those soldiers to refeeding syndrome. I think the present explosion here when it comes to diabetes or metabolic conditions is mainly because of exposure to overnutrition. And I would say overnutrition without the micronutrients in it. And that's where we touch upon millets, though they may be currently, providing calories, carbohydrate, fat, protein, all of it, but they are dense in micronutrients. So diet and diabetes go hand in hand. That's not new. We have an elegant study called the STAR study by Dr. Shashank et al., who tells us that carbs are the ones which are the culprits, and, unity in diversity. Unfortunately, in India, we have 41 different dietary patterns, but with carbohydrate as the main component. Later on, we'll diverse and deep dive and understand that how the consumption of carbohydrates is it complex or simple carbohydrates. If you look at this particular study, this was recently published in 2022 in January in European Journal of Clinical Nutrition. This was based on what India eats. And if you look at the brown color, which tells us that the carbohydrate consumption is way high in all the 4 regions, whether it's the rural or the urban India. And if you look at this slide further, it also digresses further to tell us that the prevalence is associated with which staple when we consume it. On the other hand, if you look at this slide, it tells you very clearly that the northern part of India and the eastern part of India does not include millets as much. And most often the cereals are rice and wheat based. If you look at this particular slide, it clearly indicates the fact that we are looking at cereals from carbohydrates, which are lentil carbohydrates, which have a slow postprandial release. Are we worried only about diabetes? No, we are not only worried about diabetes. We are also worried about the complications associated with diabetes. Usually, the term called glycemic variability also plays a very, very important role, apart from hypoglycemia or only hyperglycemia. And when you look at this, it very clearly indicates that the resistant starch, which is present either in the whole grain cereals or in the lentil carbs or whole grains, they are the ones which have a slow gastric emptying, which have a host of health benefits. Now, I would not want to sell, Eskimos to sell ice to Eskimos, because I'm sure the entire fraternity who's sitting across here understands the nutritional value of millets. But definitely, I would want to make a mention that when you look at millets along with rice and wheat, you definitely see that the protein is much higher than rice. And secondly, when you look at the fat, it is already the essential fatty acids. When you look at the minerals, if you look at foxtail, it seems to be having the highest when compared to the remaining, either the millets or the cereals like rice or wheat based. But I would want to make a mention here that in the nutrition composition, you would see quinoa scoring highest in terms of micronutrients or fiber or the protein, and a little low on the carbohydrate, but definitely it cuts the pocket of a common man. So we are looking at alternates, which will be more nutritious. And if you look at the total dietary fiber, whether it's the wheat or the millets, they seem to be scoring almost equal, whether it's the dietary fiber, insoluble fiber, or the soluble fiber. Definitely, we have the carbs, which are much lower than when it comes to rice and wheat. So when you look at the micronutrient status, obviously, each millet has its own, I would say, it scores over the other millet in some form or the other. For example, we have the finger millet, which is very rich in calcium, phosphorus, iron, potassium. And if you look at the barnyard millet, It's equally high in phosphorus and iron. If you look at pearl millet, it's the highest when it comes to iron. So each one has scores the other one in a particular micronutrient. Now, this is some data from Dr. Mohan's, which tells us very, very clearly that when you look at white polished rice against ragi, whether it's the cereal, I mean, so whether it's a processed or a regular ragi, the total dietary fiber is much higher in any preparation when compared to white rice. And obviously, all of you are aware what are the health benefits of millets, whether, it's improves blood glucose, cholesterol, even cataractogenesis, or, it's bountiful in antioxidants, which may help to prevent certain cancers, obviously improve anemia, improve dyslipidemia. And when there is satiety with the presence of fiber present in it, definitely you can relieve constipation, which is never ever spoken of. And obviously, because of the presence of phytonutrients and antioxidants, it's a valuable immunobooster. And most importantly, it's less allergenic, so less of asthma we see. But unfortunately, we have very few human trials to substantiate the health benefits on millets. Now, this was a particular picture which was put up in the newspapers recently, which did mention that millets in market may up sugar levels. Why is this particular statement saying like this? The reason being that the millets available in the market, though there are 48 brands available, which I'm talking of only Chennai, this study was done by Dr. Mohans, where they found that a major chunk of them were the polished millets. And if you look at this picture, it very clearly illustrates the fact that the polished millets look much prettier. Unfortunately, it's not the pretty thing which we are looking at. We are looking at the husk is removed and the fiber is off. And obviously, the health benefits majorly depend on the fiber content on it. And the pack gives a very, very false information. They are fiber depleted. They are polished in nature. They are increased in their high glycemic index as well as load, equivalent to that of rice. But then the pack gives us wrong information on it. Then there was another study which was done once again by Dr. Shobhana et al., which did make a mention that some of the recipes which were prepared with millets, they were found to be on the higher GI. But then we need to deep dive to understand whether these products which were found to have a high GI, were they prepared from the polished millets. Now they did another study wherein they had isocaloric meal was provided. One was provided the finger millet based diet, the other group which was provided the white rice based diet. But the sample size was very, very small. In total number of 7, they found that whether it was the finger millet or the white rice based, the glycemic response was almost similar. It's a little interesting to understand that when you look at the ICMR data of 2022, which was published regarding type 1 diabetes, they had ragi making a mention of 84 as GI, the ragi roti as 61, and the ragi upma as 82.3, as based on Henry et al. 2021. So this concept has to be understood that as a millet, it may or may not have low, medium, or high GI. But as a preparation, you and me are going to consume it as a preparation. So the preparation is most important when it comes to GI and GL. And apart from the preparation, what are the constituents which go into the preparation? For example, if I'm going to consume the healthiest of millets with the lowest of GI, but I'm going to consume it in the form of a porridge, especially for somebody who's suffering from diabetes, poor controlled diabetes, I'm not going to do good to the patient. But at the same time, if that is provided in a chewable form, or it is provided with healthy fat, or the incorporation of some whole grams or sprouted grams. In fact, the Eat Right Mela in Chennai recently, they served idli with sprouted whole grams. Like the chana rajma was sprouted and added to the idli batter, and they had served idli. So these are certain innovative recipes which not only help to improve glycemic response, but also gut health. But remember, whenever we go in for products which are processed products, the quantity of saturated fat, obviously trans fat should be on the low as much as possible. Saturated fat is very, very important. Most often we say, read the label before it walks onto the table. So a small request to the agri-scientists and to the processing industry that to keep a watch on the additives in terms of saturated fat, trans fat. Most often the products are found to have, they will explain that it's a very high fiber, but the fiber content will be much lower than the fat content. So this is some of the data from ICRISAT itself. I don't need to share this, but this talks about good glycemic control. But as I mentioned to you, glycemic variability is also more importantly. In fact, this was a small data from one of my patients who was suffering very high blood sugars and very low blood sugars. In fact, when the patient was put on varag rice and varag upma, which is nothing but millet based, the glycemic variability was much better. In fact, I had one IAS officer, posted in Chennai who had diabetes and he was put on medication. His HbA1c was around 8.5. And bureaucrats, unfortunately, may not be able to take meals on time. He was having recurrent episodes of hypoglycemia, so he had to stop his medication. And what he did was he did a lot of reading and replaced all his cereals with millets, but they were sprouted, roasted, or fermented, so that the goitrogenic property is also out. And he reversed his diabetes by changing not only cereals from rice and wheat to millets, but also including physical activity and a green smoothie in his particular diet. The nutrition and health profile of a recipe not only depends on the ingredient per se, the form in which it is served, the composition of the entire meal. For example, we tell our diabetic patients, you first take the fiber. It could be the salad or the whole gram, or it could be even the soup, or it could be even the vegetable what they consume. Then the protein. The protein could be once again in the form of a curd raita, or the non-veg, that is the lean protein, or the whole grams, and then choose on the cereal portion, which is the major chunk of carbohydrate. It could be the cereal or the millet, whatever. When you choose this food order also, you can help in good glycemic control. So benefits to reduce HbA1c, glycemic variability. Also remember, when your blood sugars are not under control and when you're consuming too much of carbs, too much of calories coming from simple carbohydrates, not from fiber, your triglycerides do raise, and also it's a preponderance for metabolic diseases. Remember, one important component when it comes to diabetes is type 1 diabetes, which is already autoimmune. If you had an add-on celiac disease where you need to go for a gluten-free diet, it's very, very important you need to choose on millets. So there are certain lentil carbs like legumes, soaked pulses, oats, barley, which can be incorporated along with the millet-based recipes in order to reduce the GI further. And we did a small study at Madras Medical College wherein we had prepared idlis, rice-based idlis, and we had squeezed some lime juice over it. And we found that the postprandial blood glucose did come down by 30 milligrams. So the small tips, chew count is very, very important for every particular individual, not only to, enjoy the taste of every bite of the meal which you're consuming, also to nourish the body. So this is some of the data from ICRISAT per se. And this was once again another data from Dr. Shobna et al., wherein they found that incorporation of legumes, fenugreek, amaranth, and roasted legumes did bring down the GI of those millet-based recipes. And this is again data from ICRISAT, which talks about CV health. And apart from that, there is so much other data which talks to us about the metabolic variables like the LDL cholesterol, HDL cholesterol, triglycerides, fasting, postprandial blood glucose, and also the BMI coming down when one consumes millet-based foods. Then last but not the least is we need to start young. As Dr. Vidya Shankar was also making a mention that we need to start young, we need to start catching them when they are young. Our palate, if whatever we are exposed to at that young age is what we develop throughout our life. So when we talk of that, it's important to mention about weaning foods. And Dr. Mazumdar wanted me to make a special mention on weaning foods. Obviously, between 7 to 12 months of age, when they are provided weaning foods, they require at least 660 calories and 10 plus grams of protein, which means initially 7th month, 8th month, you can provide probably 6 small meals and gradually wean to 3 large meals. So you can start with 110 calories per meal, which provides almost 1.7 grams of protein, and then gradually move on to meet the requirement. But remember, ICMA 2020 tells us that not all cereals are they're not complete proteins. So similarly, millets also are not complete proteins. When we want them to become a complete protein, we want them in the ratio of 3:1:2.5. For example, if I'm choosing on an idli, I'm using 3 portions of my millet or the rice-based idli along with 1 portion of the pulse is to 2.5 from the dairy. So that way I get a complete protein. So remember all the meals, whether you start with weaning and after 1 year of age, you provide something like this with 3:1:2.5 in order to make it a complete protein. Now, weaning could influence child's health, and also not only that, during pregnancy, if the mother is suffering from gestational diabetes, if she does not have control over her blood glucose, she can either deliver a very low birth weight infant, which is once again going to be an insulin-resistant infant, which means that particular infant is going to be born with fewer beta cells, fewer nephrons, fewer neurons, which means that child is going to be at risk of metabolic conditions when the child is going to be born. And if suppose it's a female child, unfortunately, there could be transgenerational risk of non-communicable diseases. So we need to not only think of weaning foods, also during pregnancy and lactation. And remember, we cannot rely only on one food group. We need to incorporate all the food groups in order to get the best benefits. This is the common complementary foods which have been introduced by National Institute of Nutrition, the favorite traditional recipes when it comes to khichdi, malted porridge, but we need to think a little further down because we know today's date is the smart food. So the weaning foods can be prepared either fermented, malted porridge. They could be based also with moringa leaves, which have very high ORAC value, coconut and pearl millet porridge, because coconut is very good on the gut, especially when it comes to children, not maybe for the adult population. The laddus is the usual one. We have the idli, dosa, idiyappam, khichdi, kuli paniyaram, pongal, dhokla, sweet pongal, tinai pongal, millet stew, appam, pancakes, bajra upma. A little once a child grows up, you can introduce chapatis, millet-based chapatis. In fact, somebody came to me 2 days ago and said that they prepared an extruded sample of all the millets put together, but they wanted me to prepare a porridge. I prepared a chapati out of it. It tastes amazing. And obviously, you reach satiety also along with taste. So it's like how Dr. Vidyashankar said, we need to look at something which is nutri and licious. So samai kheer payasam, samai bagala baat, samai paraprasadam, dal rice, tinai pulao, bisibela baat. All these, there are, sky is the limit when it comes to thinking of recipes. Only thing, you need to add a touch of nutrition, need to add a touch of emotion and a touch of taste in order to get the best of it. So remember, gluten-free is one big issue when it comes not only to type 1, even for those who are type 2 or those who are suffering from irritable bowel syndrome or IBDs, we need to worry about these gluten-free recipes. And it's important, like how every food product has a label, or any item which is sold in the market has a label of warning. We need to make a mention that avoid millets in certain conditions, like copper restriction with Wilson's disease, inborn error of metabolism, those with congestive heart failure or DCLD, organ failures, malabsorption syndromes, colon cancer, pancreas cancer, liver gallbladder cancer, cancer of the stomach. So there are certain situations where one needs to avoid millets. Obviously, that also needs to make a mention of. When we talk of the anti-nutrients in millets, we need to remember either soak them, germinate them, ferment them, or in the industry level, pop them or puff them in order to improve their bioavailability. So I would say final take home would be choose millets, whole grains and not polished. Choice depends on the vulnerable group. You want to choose on which particular group. Is it for the pregnant? Is it for the lactating? Is it for the weaning food? Or is it for the elderly? Or is it for a diabetic? Or is it for a cardiac? Which target population you want to, target your millet recipe with? Based on as I mentioned to you, each millet is specially designed. I think they're all designer recipes or designer food ingredients with a special touch of either iron, calcium, phosphorus, potassium, or for immunity, look at zinc, or diarrhea, dementia, dermatitis, you look at niacin. So each one of these millet have specific nutrients. But obviously, remember that you cannot go with only one particular food ingredient. You need to have a variety of them. And the right accompaniment is also equally important when you talk of IBS with constipation or gluten-free or a plant-based low-protein diet. So the final take-home would be going for the unpolished millets, which are nutritionally superior. We need some database on whole and polished. Unfortunately, being in Chennai, I understand that the market is flooded with the polished millets. We need more of RCTs. And considering the nutritional composition, it is worthwhile to lower the GI of millets by developing products with suitable functional ingredients. Choose on buckwheat, choose on also fenugreek, flaxseed, stuff like this, which will also further down the GI of the millets. Need agri-scientists to develop higher amylose genotypes with lower phytate contents. No single millet is a superfood. Variety is the key to good health. Thank you for your patient listening.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Meenakshi. I think you have touched upon all aspects. And I think one thing we realized is that innovation is the key here. In spite of we knowing that millets are good for health and their nutritional benefits, but then when it comes to the impact on metabolism, I think there are a lot of other factors which come into play. And that's what we need to understand as we move along, working closely with the industry. I think also Dr. Vidyashankar would agree that there were a lot of important tips here for us as technologists to work together with you and understand and develop this. I see that there is a possibility, as Madam suggested, that we could have an expert group involving the industry, the food scientists, nutritionists, and then come up with what sort of recommendations and policy support we need to take this movement forward. So thank you, Dr. Meenakshi, for your perspective. And we look forward to working closely with you and other experts in the nutrition space as you see that we need this database on whole versus polished, which you highlighted, very important, and a lot of other databases and validations need to be created. So we look forward to further generate and work with you to generate evidence for promoting smart food initiative of ICRISAT across the globe. Now I request Dr. Madam Neelam Patel, if you have any questions to our panelists as such, before we open up this for Q&A to the participants. Over to you, Madam.
Thank you, sir. All the presentations were outstanding. It is really very great for me to see the other side of the coin. That particularly Meenakshi ji, recently in one of the meeting, people have pointed out that you people are promoting millets, but after consuming the millets, my sugar level is increasing. So what today I came to know, yes, what is the problem. So now, in fact, you can provide the solution. How we can protect our consumers' health if they are rating it is unpolished, but they are selling it the polished one. So in place of doing something good, we are doing something bad. So I think nothing is specific, but I would like to thank for Sekharji for this organizing this webinar, and all the presentations were outstanding. And I think we are now making a good group of experts to work further. Yeah. Thank you. Nothing.
Thank you, Madam. Madam, I just like to highlight Dr. Sudha could not join, but I think she shared slides which Dr. Meenakshi has presented. Her mother is not well. Yeah. So we wish her mother quick recovery, and we will get in touch with her in future. Yes. So with this, Madam, we'd like to take a few questions, and then I will then ask my colleague, Mr. Selvaraj, to do the vote of thanks and close the event. So any questions can be addressed, and we can take it. Vanisha?
Yes. Yes, sir. There is a question from Bazira Fatima. She is pursuing diabetics. This question is to Dr. Meenakshi. Her question is, does millets have bloating side effect? How well can a person adapt to newer eating habits by introducing it in and making it on and off?
Basically, you will not have bloating when it comes to millets. Am I audible?
Yeah, you're audible.
Yeah. So basically, you will never have bloating when it comes to millets. But unfortunately, if you are sensitive, your gut is sensitive to a new ingredient, probably you may have to try in a small quantity and see the comfort level and then increase the quantity. But basically, you should not have any flatulence or bloating with millets. But if you think you have, you can either, soak them overnight or germinate them or consume them in a fermented recipe. Definitely, I would say that you would not have any bloating. I hope I've answered your question.
Thank you, madam. Any other questions?
Yeah, Ms. Rumila, she wanted your PPT, ma'am.
Okay, we'll share the PPTs. We will share them.
Yes.
Not an issue. Yeah. Any other questions? I have a question
here. Sir, if
here.
you give me a moment, I just would want to say one thing that Professor M. Swaminathan sir always used to make a mention that there has to be a marriage between nutrition, agriculture, and the agri-scientists in order to promote any health benefit from our own grown staples.
Yes, we definitely agree with that. In fact, that's what the Smart Food Initiative is trying to do. We want to link the entire value chain, linking agriculture, nutrition, entrepreneurship, and then value addition. So that's, I think, and health ultimately. Yeah. So thank you. And I have a question here from Dr. Rupa. It's just down to Dr. Vidya Shankarji. Is Britannia open to getting into niche health foods to address chronic ailments? That's a question.
Yes, we are very much. So we have a brand called NutriChoice, which is very much opts for this chronic ailments and also for the regular metabolic health. If you look at the NutriChoice Digestive, it is the one of the brands like where it really sells well and people pick it up. And Mari is also the Mari biscuits, like the brand like Vita Mari. It is fortified with the vitamins part of it, which is very much accepted by the general public, and it's also supported by the dietitians and the nutritionist part of it, like where it really gives the sustained release of the glucose, and also it really brings back a certain kind of a nutrients part to that. And going forward, actually the recently actually the innovation basket is open. Actually we have come up with a under the NutriChoice brand, we have this proteins, seeds, and immunity. So this is the marriage what has happened. So as I told, actually any new initiatives will start small and then it has to be scaled up. It requires a lot of perseverance and patience part of it. So in the NutriChoice other element, we have a diabetes friendly essentials. That is another type of a biscuits or the products what is available in the market, which is very much fortified with a lot of minerals and vitamins, and along with a certain kind of the millets. So there is the raki biscuits are also available from the Britannia house, and also we have a sorghum which is really used. So now we are getting into very particularly we are getting into the nutraceuticals, and there actually we are looking really to make a good headspace with the millets per se, along with the other nutraceutical elements part of it. So that is the plan ahead, and this is going to be happening. And finally, the only the other caveat, like where I want to bring in the from the policy aspect from Dr. Neelam, is actually from the FSSI perspective, where we have to put the right guidelines and the guardrails for these kind of a things. Because from the procurement perspective, if you are putting any kind of a legislation to this, so this has to be really has to be unified. So the playing ground has to be made equal for the competitors, because generally the market is very volatile and it is very competitive and very sensitive because for the competitive perspective. So generally any kind of a brand happens, the other brands will come into the picture, and finally the competitive sets in. Finally that has to be the real standard playground, so that regulations has to be really fixed apart. And even Dr. Meenakshi, what she was putting across, like the food labeling aspects also has to be really looked in, and the inspections has to be made tighter on that part of it. So going forward, I think like those are the areas where from the policy aspects, and also from the promotion aspects, we have to look at it very particularly. And also the claims part of it, the softer claims and the hard claims, actually that is one of the biggest areas, like where we get fooled off. Basically, if you look at the pandemic situation, in the COVID situation, the lot of like XYZ, there is a huge claims which really rolled upon that. Finally the FSSI came with a certain kind of a regulations. Look, that is nothing doing, you should have a certain kind of a RCT trials, and it has to be agreed with the panel members. So then that can be published, and it can be really, it can be propaganda can be made at that. So the veracity of the claims and whatever is good, everything is good, but what are the positives and negatives, that has to be really thought well. And finally there should be a good amount of a thought has to go there at the thought leadership level, so that like the policies are really bringing in the real sense. Like when you are claiming it is for a gut health, whether it is really scientifically valid, it is the firmicutes species, it is really it is propping up, or it is like bactericides, it is propping down. So that kind of a technology aspects, and also the testing aspects also has to be really going up there. So because you have to just, it is a the ecosystem has to be developed. That's what I was telling from the beginning. So the testing also has to be there, and the testing has to be very quick. And also the from the market, whenever you are picking a sample, the test reports, or when the consumer is coming across with a certain kind of a complaint, that has to be really, it has to be looked in a faster manner. So for that, actually a good amount of the policies and a certain kind of the kits for detection kind of a thing, or it might be for elimination kind of a thing, that will be a really helpful going forward part of it. Like because the food labels claims for that, but veracity of the claims and and whether it has got that real kind of a effect. So because the what is the features it is really built into the product, and to give that kind of a functionality. So that is something where we have to really thing from the think tank's perspective
Yes,
and
I
not
think
from
I
the
think I
policy?
agree with you on that, because I myself have picked up a number of samples from the market which say low GI, and then I find 2% millets, and then when I've done my starch digestibility studies in the lab, they're as good as a wheat biscuit, and they do not give any benefit. So I think, Madam, I think as part of the policy and our discussions taking forward, maybe also talking to FSSAI, especially in the millet space, to see that the products which are in the market, they are validated for the claims they make, because ultimately it's the consumer who is going to suffer. Somebody sees a millet biscuit and or whatever it is and takes it and says it's low GI, and then actually it isn't. It is going to affect the health. So I think the claim part needs to be further strengthened, because with this millet wave, there are a lot of products in the market, but that without any validation. So that's where we are also focusing. We have a lab here which does the validation for these products, and we need to further strengthen the ecosystem, madam. So over to you, madam, if you want to highlight this briefly.
In fact, this Vidya Shankarji very rightly pointed out. In fact, I suggest in place of going to FSSI, going to some state government, since this task was assigned to Niti Aayog to develop the policy framework. And now I think we are very most opportunate time to bring all these things in one document. Okay, if the processing, this is the standard protocol. For testing, this is the protocol. For FSSI, this is the protocol. And for branding and for packaging, for everything. So all the industry people, those who are there, that is going to help them. Even for consumer, that okay, once I will read the label, whether it is polished, unpolished, what is that? And then for doctors like Meenakshi ji, that will be helpful for her also, how to promote things, because now we have not to work only in India. I would like to share that already the task I assigned to our ambassador, those who are working in the outside of the country, to mainstream the millets in the respective countries. So we are expecting to enhance the export of our product. But if we will not able to control the quality, and that is pointed out that the samples were failed because of this in the lab. So we have to make some framework for the testing, validation, labeling, and everything. And we are already working. So we are working in the different dimensions now. So we have not touched these issues. That is why I told that this is today. It is very enriched discussion, I think. And we have touched many points. So we'll be happy to work in a team and to address the total ecosystem. Whether sometimes regulations may be very strict, people may not like it, but we have to do it. And then we have to bring something. If any type of support is on the government of India side, any of the program, that we can do it. But first we should have in our hand what is desirable. And then give some solution, then funds is the last thing that is needed. So thank you.
Thank you, madam. Thank you. So we have noted down all the points of madam and the panelists, and we shall make a proceedings of this and then move forward as suggested by madam. So with this, I think whatever questions, if anything, we will answer them separately, because the time is nearly coming to an end. I would request my colleague, Mr. Aravazi Selvaraj, who is the Chief Executive Officer of our Agri-Business and Innovation Platform, to kindly deliver the vote of thanks. Over to you, Dr. Selvaraj. Thank you.
Thanks. So it is my pleasure to propose this vote of thanks to acknowledge the kind of tremendous support that we received in organizing this platform of interaction through a webinar. So we are grateful for all the kind of people who have associated with us in organizing it. Especially, I would like to thank Dr. Neelam Patel, Senior Advisor, Niti Aayog, Government of India, for taking her time and sharing her thoughts on today's topic, especially leveraging millets for nutrition and health. And in fact, Madam has given an overall perspective of the policy which needs to be formulated to take this millet mission to various states and through various processes in streamlining the kind of challenges that they mentioned, even the industry level challenges. So thank you, Madam, for showing us the way forward. And in fact, this is going to be a kind of a booster for the millet producers, processors, and consumers as we go along. And I would like to immensely thank the esteemed panelists, especially Dr. Vidyashankar Satyakumar, Head of R&D Excellence and Capacity Building, Britannia Industries, Bengaluru, for giving us the perspectives of the industry, like what industry is looking, how industry is transforming, and what kind of challenges they are facing, and how do we move forward in mainstreaming millet in our diet. So thank you, Dr. Vidyashankar, for your thoughts. And Dr. Meenakshi Bajaj, the dietitian from Government of Tamil Nadu Multi-Speciality Hospital from Chennai, she gave a different perspective at all. We have been thinking like if we just eat the millet, it is going to be passing on all the nutritional benefits. But the way the kind of processing which is done on millet and the way we eat, that makes a lot of difference. So certainly these are all the kind of thoughts which we will take back, and we'll make sure we're able to be clear on what we are eating, how we are eating, and we get the benefit of these millet formulations which are there in the market, as well as what we cook at home. So we are also thankful to Saikat and all the panelists for taking this time and sharing their views. I must mention a deep sense of appreciation for the kind of discussion we had, and it was really insightful for all of us. We would also place on record our special thank to ICRISAT leaders, especially Dr. Jacqueline Hughes, the Director General, the Deputy Director General Research, Dr. Arvind Kumar, for their constant support and encouragement in organizing this program. We would like to acknowledge the support received Sanjay Agarwal, our Assistant Director General of ICRISAT, for coordinating and supporting us to host this webinar online. We take this opportunity to thank Dr. Victor Afari Sefa, our Research Program Director, Enabling System Transformation, for being the catalyst that inspired us to do the event in our best way. I would like to express my gratitude to my colleague, Dr. Saikat Datta Majumdar, Principal Scientist and Chief Operating Officer for NutriPlus Knowledge Program, which is hosted in the Agribusiness and Innovation Platform of ICRISAT, for moderating the panel discussion and taking taking our efforts in a meaningful way to the audience. And an event of this nature, I am sure, wherein I think more than 50 people have participated, would not have been possible with the support from our ICRISAT's communication team, led by Mr. Raman Pichi, Director, and also the Information Systems Unit, led by Mr. Rajiv Dungal. So I would like to personally thank them for supporting this system, for hosting this webinar. And delivering nutrition to the drylands is just a bird's eye view of ICRISAT's work in every aspect of research and development along the agricultural value chain. But in achieving this, AIP has been continuously supported by the entire team of ICRISAT at a back end. So it's not just the communication and the rest of the team, but our own team, which comprises of my colleague, Ms. Priyanka, Ms. Vanisha, Mr. Shiva, and Ms. Nancy. They have been working at the back end to make this event a successful one. I would like to thank them as well as rest of the team for their enormous cooperation in organizing this event. But last but not the least, I would like to thank all the participants who have been there for the last almost couple of hours, sparing their valuable time and taking us for all the kind of effort that we have made us proud. And I am sure this event is going to continue in the best possible way. Similar type of events we will be able to organize in future as well. And obviously the proceedings of this event will give us more insights and views on how do we mainstream the millets in our diets and our to benefit our health and nutrition aspects. So with this word, I thank all in one to make this event a successful one. And thank you, Saikat, for giving me this opportunity to present this vote of thanks at the end of this event. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you, Mr. Arawasi. And with this, we come to an end of this program, and we look forward to deliberating further in future. Thank you all. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Have a nice day.
Thank you all. Thank you.